my very good friend, Cindy Coloma. You can leave comments or questions. We can't see your name. We could just see Facebook user. But feel free. We will answer them. Okay. Cindy and I were like so trying to get the technology to work. I haven't said, how are you? How are you
Oh,
doing?
I'm doing great. It's Friday, and
It's
we're up here in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to have hit 80s, which is like total summer weather up here.
yeah.
So we're super excited. That's rare.
And you can do some fun stuff this weekend. Go out on
Yeah,
the water.
to social distance on my friend Tara's beach, who designed the cover. We're going to go sit on her beach and kayak and paddleboard and s'mores and all that. So
Oh,
we're fine.
that's fun.
This will be our first time out. Like we've been in for 2 months. So
Yeah.
we're so
Us too.
excited.
Like we left the subdivision last Sunday because the snow cone place opened, and we took all the
Oh,
kids because I haven't left. That's the only time in 2 months I've left the subdivision. It's crazy.
I know. I went up to Microsoft yesterday to pick up office stuff because we're going to be home for a while. And I'm like, I haven't gone more than like 3 to 5 miles in 2 months. It was weird to like be driving.
Yeah. I haven't driven since like March 13th. Okay. You mentioned Microsoft. Let's go what you're doing now, and then we'll go back to long
Okay.
time ago.
Yeah. So I've worked at Microsoft over a year and a half now as a storyteller slash executive and employee communications manager. So it's been a huge change from left brain, right brain, right brain, left brain. It's been pretty big learning curve going into the tech world. And I'm in a very tech area. It's the IT area. They run the systems that keep Microsoft and everyone else running. So it's definitely been really interesting, hard, and fun to find how to tell the stories of that.
Yes. Okay. So what does a storyteller do? Because give us
So
your scoop.
yeah, so it really depends on where you're at. It's really to look for taking something techie and creating a story around it. Find out what, why are people using it? What are they using it for? I work with a lot of engineers who don't know how to tell that story because
Mm-hmm.
they're so, in tune to the software world and the coding and, the whole thing. So in different parts though of Microsoft, it might be something else. It might be writing more inspirational stories, or I did write like one of our employees was one of the first in the vaccine trial. So I did his story. So it really just depends. It might be LinkedIn articles. It might be things for employees. It's all sorts of things. So we're doing a podcast. So we're working on scripting for that. And we've done a few already that haven't launched yet. But it's very diverse every day. It's challenging and fun. And and the people are really amazing. So it's been good to get out of my, little isolated world and discover this whole different world out there that I had no idea about.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like remembering the nursery at the little church we were at, and like we want to write a book, and then like both of us are completely different directions, like stuff we hadn't planned. We both have fiction, which I think we both wanted to do, but then I mean I'm doing way more like blogging now and nonfiction, and you're like at Microsoft. I'm like we never would have thought that God would have taken us these directions, and I think it's just amazing and cool, and like how God has interwoven our stories in the middle of
Yeah.
that is just really cool. So
Yeah. And I was thinking that because Cody just turned 30 and Corey's going to be 31.
31 in June. Yeah.
Yes. And it was Cody. I remember Cody was 9 months old when we met. So we're almost at our 30-year anniversary of friendship.
We need to like social distance something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
or
know.
like when this all blows over, we could like get together and do something.
And celebrate our anniversary.
Yeah.
But
So
isn't
we're
that
gonna be
30
great.
years?
Yeah, that it's been that long. And like just all the books and all the stories and everything, it's really cool. And I just
Wow.
love how like
And the
God
kids, all the
and the
kids.
so 15 kids between us now.
You have the majority of that.
Yeah, yeah. But you have the youngest one still, so
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, my youngest is 9.
Yeah, my youngest just turned 7. So we're
Yeah,
pretty close, really.
pretty close. Yeah, and we have adult kids and grandkids, and
Uh-huh.
yep,
Yeah.
all the fun stuff. Okay, so we're going to be mostly talking about From Dust and Ashes and Winter Passing.
Okay.
Okay, so I have this version of Winter Passing.
Yes.
So, but on avid readers, first in the world to see the new cover of
Yes.
Winter Passing.
Like it is so new. My mom and daughters and like I don't think like anyone has seen the final cover. We might actually do a couple tweaks still, but yeah, you guys got it
We got.
first.
I'm like, Cindy, I want to interview you. I need to cover your book, so finalize your cover because we would
Yeah.
need to have it.
Seriously, you're still helping me get things done because it would not be done otherwise.
Oh, I can see people's names now. Say Morgan said love Winter Passing. So I'm
Oh,
super excited. Yay. Okay, so I have a new cover for From Dust and Ashes too. And
oh, you
yeah,
do?
I made it. I
Of course.
created it.
Oh,
So,
that looks so good.
and that is
Oh,
really Mount on the bottom. So,
oh my gosh.
okay,
Wow.
so we need to go back to this journey.
Okay.
Um because okay, we were both well, listen, I'll give the like 30-second thing.
Yeah.
And then we'll go straight jump into
Yeah.
the fiction books. Okay, so we're at a church nursery and Cindy said something like, I'm writing a novel. I'm like, I want to do that. And Cindy let me Writer to Writer by Bodie Taney.
Yep.
And then we started going to some little groups. We went to one in Redding, California. We heard about writers' conferences. We decided we don't want to jump into hot tubs with editors. So we were going to look for which is one of the recommendations they had, this
To
writers
get
group
noticed.
to get noticed. We decided that is not the way we wanted to get noticed. And
Yeah, we
so
were horrified.
yeah, so we walked to a bookstore, put our money together, and bought a Writer's Digest magazine. We were so poor, like both of us were like so poor. And we put our money together to buy a Writer's Digest magazine. And then
Yeah.
we saw that we had just missed Mount Hermon's Christian Writers Conference,
Mhm.
and we decided we're gonna go the next year. I got a scholarship. I
Mhm.
babysat for a mutual friend. We saved up our money. And we were worried about what if too many people wanted to publish our book, which
So,
wasn't a problem.
what happened to those manuscripts?
I think I still have it
Yeah.
on my computer somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you
Mhm.
still have yours?
I don't know. Maybe printed somewhere.
You're like looking like it should be just show up right there.
Sure. I'm still trying to get it published.
Okay, so then both of us got Janet Grant as an agent, you before me, and then we both got book contracts, you before me. Which like you
Really.
started first. It's okay. Like
And
yeah.
then you ran, and then it's the tortoise and the hare. Tortoise.
And it's like yeah. Okay.
You set your mind to something and it's already done.
There we go. We're on a
You
live video right now.
thought
Oh. Okay, so you got a contract for Winter Passing. And I
Yep.
remember when you went to go talk to your publisher and they picked you up in a limo, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is like the coolest thing ever. And that is so cool. And then you were going to Europe to research and you asked me if I wanted to go along. And John let me, which I'm amazed now looking back. Okay, I had only flown at that time from Montana to California, and then all of a sudden I'm heading to Europe by
Yeah.
myself. Anna Graff, our friend, picked me up at the airport. You were there, and
Yep.
then we went through 7 countries in 6 days. I think that's what we figured out,
Oh my God.
something like that.
Mhm.
We ended up in the bridge in Prague, the
Mhm.
misty rain, the lights of the castle, and I fell in love.
Yeah.
And then we had trouble crossing the border.
Yes. Yeah, it was
Uh,
closed because they were demonstrating against the Czech doing some nuclear plants. And
Yeah.
so we were shutting them down, and we were trying to outrun the shutting them down.
Yeah. And like I was supposed to fly out the next day. Or yeah, no, 2 days or something like that. I mean, really close. Yeah. And we
We,
had to get to Austria.
we were trying to keep you. That was the thing.
I
We're
know.
like,
There we go.
down the border.
Yes. And so we ended up finding a ferry. This sounds like a novel.
The last ferry, tiny ferry, like one car
One
ferry.
car ferry that got us across this
Mhm.
lake. I don't even know how we found that because none of us spoke Czech. Land
No,
like
remember Anne
a
like pulled over that
little
boy.
boy.
She couldn't understand anything. And I don't, wow, that was miraculous. Somehow he's like, I don't,
Yeah, and I think we thought he was saying bridge, but he meant ferry. And we went across the ferry, and there was a little girl going home from school, and there was a dog waiting on the other side.
yeah.
And we made it across the border. And
Mhm.
then, was it that day that we were
Yes.
at Mauthausen? Okay. So go
Yeah.
ahead and tell a little bit about the story about how you setting it up.
Well, actually, that day we met Marta, the historian. And then the next day we went to Mauthausen, I believe. But my memory
Okay.
is, I am aging. Really?
This gray, because I haven't been to my hairdresser, is like, there's like glitter up there.
Oh man, mine came to my house. Otherwise, you'd be like, it'd be a of gray. It's pretty bad. But yeah, I had been to Mauthausen once before, and that was pretty much my, like you. I had hardly traveled. We both got married really young and
Mm-hmm.
hadn't done a lot, hadn't
Mm-hmm.
experienced of life at that time. But so we went, and Marta, the historian, just gave us all sorts of background, gave us these just rich, rich stories. And I was really wanting to keep a contemporary story with, I always like discovering like family secrets or trying to get to
Mm-hmm.
the bottom of that. I'm actually starting to do more again with that. With this project I'm doing, which I could tell you guys about, called the Ruby Rose Project, after my mom and daughter and grandma, to help
Right.
other people start writing their stories or capturing family stories. So I wanted to keep it contemporary and have a mystery from World War II in these three books: Winter Passing, Blue Night, and North of Tomorrow. And I remember she told this really engaging story.
I have
And
them right here. Yeah.
and then you said, "Hey, are you going to use that story?" And I said, "No." And you're like, "I will." And that became From Dust and Ashes.
Yeah.
So but it was such a powerful experience being at Mauthausen, being in the locations, feeling the silence. And it's like the memories are there
Mm-hmm.
still. Going through, you go through the gas chambers and you see the mass graves and you see the barracks and the roll call area. And there really is nothing like being there to recreate it or be a part of it. And also, you feel just the solemn responsibility of sharing those stories. It's almost could keep me from writing. It feels so
Mm-hmm.
heavy and important. Um, and so I don't think you can capture that without being there. So it was just such an amazing experience, us going through those and uncovering just the untold stories that hadn't been told yet.
Yeah. And we were there. I remember Marta just like walking us and telling us stories. And I remember going into where the ovens were,
Mhm.
and just the spiritual like
Mhm.
heaviness
Yeah.
was, I think we could only be in there. I know, like it was like an hour and a half or something. I'm like, I can't breathe. Like just
Mhm.
the intensity. Even after all these years, it's hard to explain unless you're there.
Right. Yeah. I don't think
And
you can. You can't
yeah,
fully.
you could just almost feel the horror. You could feel the pain.
Mhm.
You could just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so the story that captured me is she said, talked about, hey, so we close that door. My kids are like going in and out to use
Yeah.
my bathroom. Uh, about the 23 Americans from the 11th Armored Division who didn't even know the camp was there, ended up liberating the camp. And then the first one in was a Nazi officer's wife. And just like, I remember turning both like you and then to Anne, like, are you gonna write that? And you're like, no. And Anne's like, no. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I remember going home and telling Janet the story, and she's like, you should see if any of those veterans are still alive. And so I want to do that next. But first, I want you to tell about winter passing, and like why the story captured you, and a little bit about it.
It well, it actually came about. I was writing all sorts of different stories for Mount Herman that I thought would, multiple publishers would want. And just one day before Mount Herman, I just felt this scene that came to me of this young woman at a concentration camp, and it's her day that she's going to be executed. I just wrote it. I had no plans for it. I had nothing. And I was at Mount Herman sitting with Karen Ball, and she was at the time Francine Rivers' editor, and I was just like kind of freaking out that I was with her at all.
We would do the freak out things when we got back to the room, and
yeah. And so she was not at all interested in my other manuscripts. And she was really gracious because I just thought, I'm just going to take a chance, which you're not actually supposed to do at Mount Herman, is show them something else. But I said, do you mind just looking at this? And it was just a couple pages. I gave it to her. She looked at it and she said, now this I would be interested in. So I spent the next year just really trying to go, what is this story about? And it was the story of Tatiana.
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, that's when I didn't really want it to be completely a World War II story. I wanted it to be, who is this young woman? Why is she in this situation? What is the backstory around it? And then there's a lot of mystery within that of who is she really, and what has she done to get there? And so from that, I wanted it to be a contemporary story, and just started this other character, Darby, came to life, whose grandmother is on her deathbed calling the name of Tatiana. And she's very close to her grandmother, has never heard the name Tatiana before. She knows her grandmother escaped World War II Europe, but so often these people who are so close to us, we don't ask them about their stories.
Mm-hmm.
We know them because you grow up with them, and they're your grandma and or your mother, and you don't. It takes a certain time in life that you start going, oh wait, this is like a person. They're not just like my
yeah, exactly. Like my grandma that makes yummy food for me.
Right. Yeah. So suddenly you start, exploring, well, who are they really? And start uncovering that, are these people who've been on our whole life, are very complex with so many stories and things that we don't know. And so that's what I wanted to explore. And then because I have a deep love of World War II history since probably high school or even earlier, I wanted to really go into, what the complexities that the things that I just judged prematurely from being an American, viewing Europe during that time, and even what a Nazi is, and what people, why didn't people help other people better, and then just having to explore a lot of the questions for myself, and doing that through the characters, and ultimately the mystery of Tatiana and this missing empress brooch, and all these things that give it a little excitement that I always love doing. And so that became Winter Passing.
That is awesome. Okay, and then I just opened it right now. So there's a note for me that you wrote from October 10th, 2000, in the front in Vienna.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, now I just want to read this again because I mean, it's been.
I gave it to you in Vienna.
You gave it to me in Vienna.
Wow.
That's so something you would have done though, because it's like cool. It's like I'm saving it for this moment, and we are here together. Aww. It says, oh, I won't read it all because I'm gonna cry. But it's like, I mentioned Prague and Mauthausen and Vienna. Okay, so anyway, so cool. And I just love that I got to be there, like at Mauthausen, and then that's where God gave me my story, and then World War II novels, and just like that's where my journey began. And I think it's just, I just love how, as friends, he's put us on this journey together, and it's kind of gone apart and then together and apart. But it's just neat how we have that to always like look back to and talk about, and it's just really cool. All right, I'm gonna go through some of these questions before we forget. Um, I love the whole series of Winter Passing, Morgan said. And then I still can't see. I can only see Morgan's name. So, Morgan, you are special
Oh,
because
I
I can't see
know.
anyone else's name.
I can
But
put, hey, Cindy, and hi, Cindy, but I don't know who you
yeah.
are.
So,
Hi.
hi. Oh, so we were living in Northern California when we
Yeah.
started. And then I moved to Kalispell, Montana. And then you came up for a little bit and we're there. But most of the time we have lived apart, actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and Morgan said, write this as a travel memoir, please.
You
It is.
should.
There's a lot of good stuff. And then someone said, it's raining here. The reception's horrible. Look at the replay. Um, oh, and then Morgan says she went to Dachau. And
Mm,
then
I've
I
been to
love
Dublin.
all the real stories of World War II that your books are based on. Yeah, Mount Herman has the best freak out moment, someone
Oh,
says. So,
yeah.
yeah, very cool. Okay, so going back, so I love again how the journey continues. So when I went back, talked to Janet, she's like, you should see if any of those veterans are still alive. And I contacted them, and they invited us to, well, they invited me to our World War II reunion.
And
And
you
then you had to go meet with your editor.
oh,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, we stayed at Ramona's house.
Yep.
And then we drove up to Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yep. Playing 80s music all the way. Air
And
Supply.
Air Supply is the best. Like,
I remember us singing as we're driving at the top of our lungs.
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
full of love.
yeah.
I'm a horrible singer. I'm
And I just
sorry.
remember like you were meeting with Ramona and going over your book, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And then we got up there, and I had told them that we were coming up that day, but I hadn't given them a time. And this is before cell phones, like you're not calling people or texting people. And we walk in, and Bob, who was the son of one of the veterans, walks up and said, "Are you the authors?" And we said, "Yes." And they said, "The guys are waiting for you."
Mhm.
And literally, did we even put
I don't
our
think we even
suitcases in our rooms?
we may have tossed them in, but and
Yeah,
another part of that is we were on the way there really nervous. Like, will they talk to us? Who are we to ask for their story?
exactly. Yeah.
And for them to say, "Oh, they're waiting for you," it was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And it,
And
yeah,
literally they were waiting. Like there was a table set up and there's Arthur and there was Charlie and there was Thomas
yeah,
or Tarmo. Who did you talk to first? Thomas or Tarmo?
I don't
Uh,
even. It was so like
I
incredible.
remember I talked to Arthur and Charlie first. And I
Okay.
had my little voice recorder and I sat down and they had been Charlie was a replacement and Arthur took him under his wings and they were there and they told us all. I mean, I just remember they just like were so thankful that someone was cared and
Yeah.
listened and stories. And I just remember one of the interviews I had, one of the guys was telling me stories, and his wife is sitting next to him. Her name
Yes.
is Betty. I can't remember his name. And she's like, I have never heard these stories. I've been
Mhm.
married to this man for 50 years.
Yeah.
And it was just, and they had photo albums, and it was just like they were so thankful that like people were listening to their stories. And so you talked to some guys, and I talked to some guys, and we recorded them, and I got those transcribed, so I still have all of them. But it
Yeah.
was just an amazing, just amazing experience.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, I think what I've seen over the years too is that it does take people a certain age or time to start going back to a lot of the stories of their when they're younger. And that was definitely the case for them. I mean, these were men who just came back and launched into raising families, working hard, just going from war to raise life, and they just stuffed those stories away. So I remember, and I can't remember his name either, but the one that would just cry. He had never been to a reunion.
Was it Tarmo? Oh, I think it was Tarmo. Did he
Yeah.
have an accent?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it was Tarmo. He
Yeah.
would just cry because you just came and told me like he just would just cry. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really hard to even talk. So I would try to I remember I would get a map and I'd say, so where did that happen, to try to help him to tell the story. But he had never gone to a reunion before. He hadn't hardly told any of his story. And it just was so emotional to bring that back. And so many of them said that they had never told their story. It was like a grandson had come and said, hey, for this project at school, they want us to interview someone from World War II. And suddenly the whole family's like, hearing these stories that nobody even knew anything about. Like they didn't know that they liberated a concentration camp. They didn't know all the friends they lost or that they fought in the Battle of the Bulge and what that was like. And I remember around that time, the Band of Brothers movie came out, and that was, really focused on what is it? What airborne is that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
101st, I think 101st Airborne.
Yes, you're right. And watching that, and then through the Battle of the Bulge and seeing the tank division, and I'm like, those are our guys.
Yeah.
They were the ones in the tanks, and through that battle, and they told us all about that battle and all that they went through, losing people. And I will never forget a number of them saying, when I got to the gates of Mauthausen and saw this camp, this just unbelievable sight that they could hardly even comprehend, that's when they knew what they had been fighting for, like all that time. Yeah. And it gives me chills right now just thinking about it.
I know, me too. It totally did. Yeah. But they would such clarity. Like I could, when they would start talking, they said, I could smell it. I can see them.
Yeah.
I could, and just the tears would come, and they could talk about this battle and that battle and this. And then when they talked about the camp, it was just this total shift of not just in their memories. It was like they were there. It was like, I see, I feel. It was like such an impacting thing. And they were young. I think the oldest one was like 23. They're like 18, 19 years old. When I look at my kids now, I'm like, that is so young, and they're on the other side of the world and what they're experiencing. And
what was it? Pete, or who was it? It was his 18th birthday.
I think Pete.
When they liberated the camp, and because they ended up reuniting with the one of the prisoners that they liberated, and they would call it their birthday together.
Yeah,
because
Hannah.
Of being free. Yeah.
I mean, and just I know that's another one. I was thinking of Leroy Peterson's the one that also saved the baby, that ended up reuniting with her later. I mean, just all these stories and these connections. And just recently, I got an email, like I'm talking 3 weeks ago, from a grandson or a great grandson of one of the guys. And he said, my mom told me that you wrote some stories. Do you have it? And I was able to email the transcripts.
Wow.
It was John Slatton, which I had interviewed him over the phone and was able to record it because he wasn't at the reunion. But it's like people still, I mean, it's just an honor that we were able to capture those stories and talk to them. And I remember a lot afterwards, people asking me, and I would send them this is a transcript of, what they told us, and I still have the little tape recordings. I need to figure out how to digitize those.
I have the video ones too. So I believe you can drop them off at Costco or something.
We need to do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
That would be awesome. We need a little website. We're just going up all the stories.
It might be something for a museum might be interested in some of that too.
Yeah. And it was so cool because here we are hearing these stories, and then the friendships between the guys were just amazing. After all these years, and then they had dances in the evening. Do you remember when you were dancing with Tony? I found that photo of you dancing with Tony.
I was trying to teach me the foxtrot, and I was stepping all over his toes. It was horrible.
Okay, and then I'm going to tell our super secret story.
Which one?
About Thomas Nicola.
Okay. Thomas Nicoli, our sexy senior citizen.
Sexy senior citizen. So this guy, we were in our 20s. How old was he? In his 60s or?
At least, yeah. At least.
He was smooth move, hey. We're getting heated faces from this veteran. He had this chain. I gotta find a picture. I just saw it. When I was looking through my pictures, I saw it. And he had this I'm gonna post it on this group so they can see. Because I think it's a picture of either you or I think it's you with him, and I'm pretty sure your face is red. But he had this he had this low cut shirt with his like gold chain, and we're like, we're Christian writers, and it was hilarious. Okay, so this is a total sidetrack thing.
Yeah.
This is what you get when you're like with the real people here.
Yeah.
All that to say, and then we were able to go back to Europe
Yeah.
a second time with my husband and your
Mhm.
sister and your editor, and John carried all our luggage.
John is a saint. He's a saint just for going with us.
Yeah, and then I remember we would like be running to catch the train, and he would like be all this luggage and throwing it up to us because we way overpacked for what we should have
Oh
had.
yeah. Yes, we were not good travelers.
Yeah, and then we
Yeah.
went to Hallstatt, and oh, so many, and they were doing some festival in the
Yep.
square. I don't know
Yep.
what was happening. It was like a movie.
It
All this
was.
is kind of like a movie.
Yeah.
Morgan's saying, "Put it in the memoir." There's a lot that happened. There was maypoles because it was May Day, and all this interesting thing, and going to Ebensee where they had those mass graves.
Yeah, we went to all of the commemoration services for
Hmm.
it was May 5th for the Liberation Day.
Hmm.
So we got to see all the ceremonies at Mauthausen and the sub camps of Ebensee and Gusen.
Yeah.
And we met with, was it Thomas? I have the worst memory, Tricia. You are so
Um. We met. You mean the guy that was a child by the camps?
yeah.
That was
Uh-huh.
Willie. Willie,
Really.
and
See.
he still emails me. Like
He does?
like just this year, Happy New Year. He still emails me.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Marta, like in the last couple of years, emailed me too.
I see. Oh, that's
Yeah, I just
wonderful.
have my same email that I've had since 1997. Everyone can still find me.
Wow. I have a child as well.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, so Willie was a child outside that lived outside Goosen, which was the sub camp of Mauthausen, and just could tell us everything. And yeah, and
And
then
so
just
we had tours.
yeah, and then being there and during the ceremony, and the people that had survived the camp were like either striped clothes
Mhm.
that represent that they're prisoners, or striped scarves around their neck. It's just like they could have died here because
Yeah.
so many did, and just seeing them, and it was also the first time I remember there was like security with like the
Mm.
earpieces, and realizing that, oh yeah, there's some people that still would like to see them dead. I mean, just the whole thing was just moving, and yeah.
Yeah, I remember what struck me so powerfully was they would walk down the roll call with a wreath
Hmm.
from their country, and they would set it there and place it there, and they would, as Tricia was saying, wear the uniforms. And but there might be like from some countries there might be like two people, but their families were with them. So you would see that from one life or two lives, or sometimes a bigger group, just this whole group of people with them that if by surviving like this legacy that they've left. But then you also feel on the other side the loss of all the people who aren't there and the families that are gone.
Yeah.
But I remember that really impacted me to see that just the family members with
Yeah.
them. A country may only have had one or two, but then they had like 20 people with them.
Hmm. And so today is actually the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe. And so May 5th, just a couple days ago, was the 75th anniversary. And all day I'm like telling my kids, this is the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Mauthausen. And I'm like, yes, mom. Yes,
Yeah,
mom.
thank
Like, it's so important to me that I'm like, the world should know this is the
you.
75th anniversary. And I remember being in the oven area of Goosen, and like a lady crying and looking like touching a photo and like
Mhm.
crying. And so she was, I think, Italian because she's speaking Italian. And I'm like, these aren't just like a photo. I mean, this is like her family member that she remembers and knows. It's like this older lady. And I don't know, it was really, really powerful to be there. I still like remember getting some gravel off where they used to shoot people or hang people, and I remember picking up gravel. We weren't supposed to do that. I got it in
Uh-huh.
a little box here. You know, you have it too. Yeah. It's just like it's just such a meaningful thing. And then for us to continue to write stories. I've gone to interview other veterans at other places. It's just, I thought I knew I just wanted to write these simple little romances, and God just had like so much in store, like so different than I would have thought.
Yeah. He definitely surprises us with the many twists and turns along the way.
I'm reading some of the comments. I have to lean close with them.
Get my glasses back on.
It said the National World War II Museum in New Orleans are probably interested in the story, so I bet. And then that is really sad that there's still danger for those people involved. Have most of the people passed away now? Yeah, so one of the guys that I was able to meet, I met him at the reunion, and then I was able to go when I was doing a tour for one of my Amish novels. My friend Crystal Stein lives in his town. His name's John Faig, and she says he's still alive. So,
wow.
Yeah, I know. I just asked her. I probably asked her 6 months ago, so I should. But I think most of the guys that we've talked to, and I would send Christmas cards and get Christmas cards every year, and I would usually get like, "Oh, Dad passed away last year," and so just that means even more that we had that chance to meet them and remember them and have photos with them and hear their stories. So.
Yeah, I know it's been troubling to me with the coronavirus, all the loss of stories and lives, and so many being older, and I thought of that a lot in like Europe and stuff too, with the veterans, and it's heartbreaking,
Yeah, that if people haven't taken the time to hear their stories, that they're just lost. Yeah. And then I wrote a true story about a boy who was rescued from Czechoslovakia, and he just passed away 2 weeks ago. And his son texted me like, "Dad's left us for heaven," and it's just like, I'm so glad like I got the chance to write his stories. So you said something about capturing stories.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. You want to talk about the project I'm starting?
The project that you're starting. Yep.
So I'm starting it just as a Facebook group. It's a closed group, but anyone's invited who wants to work on stories. It's called the Ruby Rose Project. My grandma Ruby was a wonderful woman, but one of the things that has prodded me to work on this is that 5 years ago, well, I guess it's 6 years ago now. Is it? No, 7. Gosh. Because, six. I guess it was 6, 7-ish around there. I was working on a book. I was working on The Waiting. It was a story of a 102-year-old woman and her story of being reunited with her daughter after 70 years, and how she prayed for her daughter for 70 years until they were reunited. And I was working with the family, working on the book. I would go by, my grandma had first, she lived in an apartment, then she moved into a retirement home, and I would drive by, she'd be sitting on her rocking chair outside waiting for me. I'd pick her up. We'd go to my mom's house. My mom and grandma would babysit my 2 little kids who were, so I guess it was like 6 years ago. Griffin was 1, and
wow. Uh-oh. Oh no, we lost Cindy. Okay, she needs to jump back on. All right, so I will ask her. Hopefully she can jump back on if she's writing any more books, but we need to hear about this. Okay, so let me text her real quick and tell her to jump back on. Oh wait, she's jumping back on. There you are. Nope. Okay, while she's jumping back on, some of her other novels, Caleb and Kate, Eventide, and then I have Winter Passing, and then I have Blue Night. Okay, are you jumping? All right, I don't see your video yet. Okay, it's getting you back on.
Okay,
I don't know why I got you off. Okay. So you were telling us about your grandma helping babysit your kids.
Yes. And then so we finished the book. The book came out in time for Mother's Day. It was a big rush because she was 102. And Minka was her name. And Minka passed away just a few months later. And then my grandma got sick right at that same time. And she passed away a couple months after that. And as we were working on like her memorial and things like that, I suddenly realized all the stories I didn't have that I had spent this year, diving into, the memories and the stories of this family. And there was a lot of questions I had about my grandma, who I was picking up, spending all this time with, but you don't necessarily go into, what was your favorite thing as a child to do, or, these things like that. So this project is really to help other people capture their own stories, capture their family stories. And it's not necessarily to be published, or the waiting is actually in the works for a major motion picture.
Oh, wow.
But for me, I think that it gives people significance to have their story down. So it's something for them to leave behind. But it's also just so valuable for families to be able to have this rich history of other, where did I come from? Who were the people in my life? Where did my artistic talent come from? Where did my, this, or what was this adventure? And so that's what the Ruby Rose Project is about, just to kind of help people start getting their stories. So I just am getting it launched today. I posted a couple things, and I can provide a link in here if anyone's interested. I'm going to do kind of some challenges and and helps on how to write a story, but first, just really to capture the story. So I'm doing my mom to get her stories, and that's my first focus. And then I'm going to go to my dad and my Uncle John and just try to start grabbing or help them also capture their story. So it'll be
I love that. Yeah, my grandma lives in the next room. She's still 90. She still lives with me. And I've gotten a lot, but I need to actually, because that's with my cell phone and just hey, grandma, I need to set up the camera and actually get it for real instead of just these short clips here and there. Okay, so someone said I love the Salt Garden, and someone else said Eventide is her favorite.
Oh,
I
nice.
have Eventide right here. I know I have more of yours on the shelf. This is my keeper special, never get away shelf. You can see the hole right there. That's where Cindy's books were. There's more up there. I showed them Caleb and Kate.
Okay, good.
I have that. So, okay, but they asked, are you going to be working on any more fiction?
You know what? I finally am getting back to it. So I've spent about 10 years mainly doing collaborative writing. So writing for other people. I did a KGB spy, and then the 102-year-old woman, quite a few books like that. But I'm super excited. I'm getting back to fiction. I'm hoping to have a fourth book for the Winter Passing series. I'm about to commit to that.
You just did. So basically, everyone heard it here. She is committing. Oh, it's Sarah from Quills who's saying hi to you.
Oh, hi,
Sarah. So you heard it here first. She just said, and today's May 8th, 2020. She said she's going to write the fourth book to the Winter Passing series.
Yes, that's so. I do that, and then I have a baby book for my grandson that I want to write and then make available about this little really special thing that happened with his birth that connects to my son's birth. So that'll be another something. But cool. I have more ideas and I know what to do with, but it's also difficult because, full-time job and 2 little kids.
Working from home and homeschooling now.
Yeah. It's not true homeschooling. It's survive. The teachers are doing a great job trying to do this hybrid, and us parents are, oh man, yeah.
Yes, well, we're still homeschooling, and my kids are like, everyone's done with school next week. And I said, you're not done with school next week. In Arkansas, I guess they're done with school next week. At least the neighbors' school. So my kids all of a sudden think we're done with school. I'm like, no, we're actually real silly homeschooling. So you don't get to do that. You haven't they have to do everything because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay, so Winter Passing, we just put the link up. If you go up and I'll put it in this the comments here too. But if you go up into the graphic that I put in the cover of Avid Readers is the link I just got this morning, and it just came able for pre-order today. So they really did rush. Like they rushed. I gave her, I'm like, I'm interviewing you on this day. I need the cover. And then on my blog, we have an interview with you. I'm like, Cindy, okay, I need this and this. And she's like, she got it to me. So for all of you, barely. But we were actually supposed to do the interview Monday. But then you had a drive-by birthday party, I think.
Yes.
But this is perfect because it's the 75th anniversary.
I know.
So it just ended up being perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I love how that works out. All right. So what's the title of your fourth book for the Winter Passing series?
I don't even know, but I have started it. It might be like a more novella. It's going to bring all the characters back together and have a little mystery, of course, and all of that. So
okay. So you're going to give this the exclusive when that comes out because they heard about it here first.
Right.
We can even like vote on titles and stuff for you because these readers love books and they love reading and they're awesome.
Yes, yeah. I would absolutely love that.
I've asked them about titles. I've asked them about covers. I had my Titanic cover that I'm re-releasing, and I had these guys that I thought were so cute, and they all said, no, the guys do not be on the cover. So I'm like, guys are not on the cover because I listened to them. They know what they like. They know what looks good. So yeah, they're awesome.
That's great.
Yes, this is an awesome group. Well, I am so glad you're here. You know, I always say this interviews to be like 20 to 30 minutes. 50 minutes later. I knew this would happen though, because like we have so many cool stories to share. But I am so thankful for you and that God brought you in my life. And thank you for being with us today.
You're forever special, like core part of my journey for sure. And still you're helping me get things done and out and forcing me to be a little bit faster.
There we go. So by see, how long are we going to give her till her fourth book is done? By next year. We'll give you a year to write it and get it out there.
Okay.
Like we need to be able to hold it in our hands though. So
okay. And the other two books will be out probably into summer or maybe sooner or
okay. So and give us the titles. I have Blue Night here.
So oops, Blue Night, and then also North Tomorrow.
It's on my shelf somewhere. I just didn't grab it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, friend.
Yes, thank you. I love you.
Love you.
Bye.